The Texas sun hung high over Dry Creek County like it had something to prove. Dust rolled in waves across Peterson Livestock Auction, coating every boot, belt buckle, and breath in grit. Men leaned on the weathered rails, spit into the dirt, and narrowed their eyes at the beast pacing inside the corral. Diablo. No need for introductions. The name alone sent a quiet ripple through the crowd, half thrill, half dread. He was a force of muscle and fury, a storm in horsehide. Ranchers whispered about how he'd shattered ribs, broke two seasoned riders' legs, and bit one man's ear clean off. Now, Buck Peterson, owner of the ranch, the auction, and just about every ego in a 10-mile radius, stood tall on the platform, thick-necked, loud, and grinning like a man who'd just stacked the deck. $1 million, Buck bellowed, his voice cutting across the crowd like a cattle whip. That's what I'm offering to anyone who can ride Diablo clean for 8 seconds. 8, that's all. The men laughed, but it wasn't humor. It was nerves dressed up in bravado. No one moved. Cassidy June, leaning on the opposite fence post with her vet bag slung over one shoulder, muttered under her breath, "He needs a vet, not a damn show." Her eyes flicked to the stallion, then to Buck. She'd warned him enough times, but greed always won in Peterson country. Somewhere in the sea of boots and Stetsons, a boy stood so still you'd miss him if you blinked. Cody Barnes, just 13, all elbows and sunburn, his hand curled around a frayed rope from the old ranch he worked with his father. He wasn't supposed to be here. Jack Barnes had made that clear. Chores before nonsense. But Cody had snuck away anyway, drawn like a moth to something he couldn't name. He couldn't explain it. Not the pull in his chest when he saw Diablo, nor the sudden stillness that fell inside him when Buck made that offer. It wasn't about the money. It was something deeper, older, like a dare whispered by fate. He stepped forward, pushing past a startled deputy who reached to stop him. "Mr. Peterson," Cody said, his voice cracking like a dry twig, "I want to ride Diablo." The laughter that followed could have leveled a barn. Buck's laugh was the loudest, slapping his palm against the rail so hard the dust jumped. "You? Hell, kid, that horse'll send you home in a sack." But Cody didn't flinch. He looked small under that big Texas sky, but something in his eyes made even Sawyer Kane, Buck's longtime ranch foreman, go quiet. Behind the crowd, Maisie Bell, the freckle-faced girl from the diner, clutched her apron with white knuckles. "Cody," she whispered, half in awe, half in terror. "What are you doing?" Cheyenne Hart, camera hanging around her neck, caught the moment. She didn't know why she'd brought her notepad that day. Now she did. Buck, always one for drama, motioned to his men. "Open the gate," he said. "Let's see if the boy's got angels on both shoulders." The gate creaked. Diablo surged forward like a freight train unchained. The earth seemed to shudder under his hooves. Cody didn't back away. He walked forward slowly, lips moving. Not in prayer, but humming. A song only he knew. A lullaby his mama used to hum when the wind howled through the shutters. The corral hushed. Diablo stopped short. No one could believe it. Not even Cassidy, who gripped the fence with pale fingers. Not Sawyer, who muttered, "What the hell?" And not Buck, whose wide grin had started to crack at the corners. Cody climbed onto Diablo's back like he'd done it 1,000 times. No saddle, no rope, just trust. The stallion exploded in motion, bucked, twisted, kicked at the very air. But Cody didn't fall. He moved with the horse, not against him. He bent when Diablo bent, held when Diablo shook, like he was part of the fury, not fighting it. The crowd lost it. Cheering, shouting, cursing. Buck's jaw clenched as the seconds ticked by. 8 seconds came and went, then 10, then 15. Finally, Diablo slowed. Foam at his mouth, sides heaving, he came to a stop. Cody slid off, stumbling in the dust, wide-eyed and shaking but upright. Diablo turned, sniffed the boy's hair, and gave a soft, snorting huff like he was claiming him. The corral went dead silent. Cassidy leapt the fence. "Cody Barnes," she gasped, grabbing his arm. "What did you just do?" Cody swallowed hard, tears in his eyes. "I didn't fight him," he said. "I listened." Up in the bleachers, Buck cracked. His hand slammed the railing hard enough to splinter wood. "Get that boy out of my corral," he barked. "That horse is mine." Dallas Creed saw his moment and slithered forward, silver watch glinting. "Buck, I'll double what I offered earlier. Diablo's worth twice that now." "You're not getting him," Buck snapped, eyes wild. The standoff had begun. Maisie pushed through the crowd and grabbed Cody's hand. "He's going to come after you, you know that?" "I know," Cody said quietly, hand resting on Diablo's warm, steaming neck. "But I ain't letting him hurt this horse again." As the sun dropped behind the hills, Cassidy hid Cody and Diablo in the old barn behind the vet clinic. Buck was already making calls. Dallas was already drawing up contracts. And Cody, curled up in hay next to the stallion, knew the ride was only the beginning. Something had changed that day. A bet was made. A legend was born. And a boy who had nothing now had everything to lose. The back roads of Texas were made for disappearing. Gravel veins winding through hills, past broken-down fences and forgotten cattle guards. The kind of roads that didn't show up on maps, but lived in the memories of people who still trusted their boots more than their phones. That night, under a moon so bright it made shadows look sharp enough to cut, Cody Barnes ran. He didn't ride Diablo, not yet. The stallion was too worked up, too fresh off the chaos. Instead, Cody led him by a worn rope, whispering the same lullaby his mama used to hum when the wind howled through the gaps in their old windows. Diablo didn't pull or buck. He followed, steady and silent, like he understood something big was chasing them, and something even bigger was waiting ahead. Cassidy June had helped them slip out the back of her barn just before Buck's truck tires growled up her front drive. No time for bags or plans. Just a flashlight, a half-empty canteen, and a whispered name. "Ryan Lee, my cousin. She'll help. She lives near the old hunting cabin up past Crossbone Ridge." Cody hadn't seen Ryan since he was little, but he remembered her as a woman with eyes like thunderclouds and hands that could gut a deer faster than most men could load a gun. If Cassidy trusted her, that was enough. They crossed 2 creeks and an abandoned fence line before Cody allowed himself to rest. He dropped to a knee beside Diablo, brushing dust from the stallion's damp coat. The horse nickered softly, ears flicking toward the sound of coyotes in the distance. "I know, boy," Cody whispered. "We ain't safe yet." Back in town, the fire had already started to spread, not with torches but with headlines. Cheyenne Hart hadn't slept. She filed her story before midnight, photos and all. Mustang Kid rides the devil. Rancher's $1 million bet backfires hit the front page of every regional paper by dawn. The town's diner filled faster than a church on Revival Sunday, and by noon folks were arguing loud enough to rattle window panes. Some said Cody stole that horse. Others called him a hero. Kids in town whispered his name like a campfire ghost story. The truth? It didn't matter. In places like Dry Creek, perception became law long before any judge showed up. By the time Buck Peterson finished his 5th glass of whiskey that afternoon, he'd made his mind up. "Find them," he growled. "I don't care how far they run." Dallas Creed, who had a nose for opportunity like a coyote sniffing blood, was already steps ahead. He knew Buck's ego wouldn't survive the scandal. But Creed didn't care about pride. He cared about profit. And a tamed Diablo, especially one tied to a boy now making headlines, was worth a small fortune. "They'll head north," Dallas muttered to Sawyer Kane. "Find 'em before the reporters do." But not everyone at the Peterson ranch wanted blood. Zeke Hollis, the youngest ranch hand, had seen Cody ride. He'd felt something change in the air that day, like a current shifting under the surface. He didn't like Buck, and he didn't trust Creed. That night, Zeke slipped out of the bunkhouse and rode toward Crossbone Ridge, praying he wasn't too late. Cody and Diablo reached the cabin near dawn. It wasn't much, just a single room with a sagging roof, a wood stove that looked like it hadn't burned since the war, and a creek running behind it cold enough to numb your bones. But it had a lock on the door and no cell signal, and right now, that was sanctuary. Ryan Lee met them on the porch, boots planted wide, shotgun in one hand, steaming coffee in the other. She didn't ask questions, just looked at the boy, then the horse, and nodded once. "I heard," she said. "Whole damn county has." Inside, Maisie Bell was already waiting. She'd driven all night in her daddy's rusted pickup, tears dried on her cheeks, and a basket of cornbread clutched to her chest. "You idiot," she whispered when Cody stepped through the door. Then she hugged him so hard it knocked the wind out of both of them. They slept in shifts that day, Cody curled on a cot beside the door, Diablo tied to a post just outside. The stallion never strayed, never rested long. His ears twitched at every breeze, every bird, every snapping twig. In the golden stillness of late afternoon, Cassidy arrived with supplies, feed, ointment, apples, and news. "They're looking," she said grimly. "Buck's offering a reward, Creed's twisting the story, making it sound like you stole Diablo in the night." Cody's jaw tightened. He wasn't his to steal. Cassidy knelt by the door, brushing dust off Diablo's flank with her sleeve. "I know that, and I believe in you, but truth doesn't always win, not unless you make people listen." Outside, Cheyenne's second story hit the airwaves. Now, they weren't just the local legend, they were statewide news. Runaway kid rescues devil horse. Dry Creek's reckoning. Viewers called in. Some offered support. Others offered to buy the horse. A few offered threats. That night, under a sky bleeding with stars, Cody sat beside Diablo, feeding him slices of apple and rubbing circles into his neck. "You saved me, didn't you?" he murmured. "That's what this is, really. I thought I was saving you, but you looked me in the eye and said I mattered. No one's done that in a long time." Diablo nudged his shoulder. The boy laughed, quiet and hoarse. "Guess we're stuck with each other now." But their peace wouldn't last. Down in town, Buck's men were already close. A gas station clerk had recognized Cassidy's truck. Sawyer had seen dust trails heading toward the ridge, and Dallas Creed, now with papers signed by a shady judge claiming ownership of Diablo, was loading his truck with tranquilizer darts. The storm was coming. And the only question left was, how far was a boy willing to go to protect the one thing that made him feel whole? The wind came down off Crossbone Ridge like it knew trouble was on the way. Cody felt it in his chest before he heard the trucks. 3 of them, engines rumbling like thunder just over the next hill. He stood up from the porch of the hunting cabin, boots scraping the wood, and Diablo, ever watchful, lifted his head from the bucket of water Cassidy had left him. Inside, Maisie peeked through the curtain. "They found us." Cassidy appeared at Cody's side, jaw set, her old veterinary bag hanging off one shoulder like a shield. "Go around the back," she whispered. take Diablo through the tree line. Ryan knows the trails. She'll meet you halfway to the creek bend." Before Cody could move, a figure stepped from the tree line. Sawyer Kane. He didn't have his shotgun this time, just a hand on his belt and the weight of an order in his eyes. "Cody," he said, voice almost soft, "you need to give up the horse." Cassidy stepped in front of the boy. "He's not giving up anything." More footsteps. Rhett Maddox emerged behind Sawyer, followed by Wilder Boone, the oldest ranch hand on Buck's payroll, face lined like cracked leather. He looked tired, guilty even. "This don't need to get ugly," Rhett said. "Buck's got papers now. Court order says the horse belongs to him." Cassidy scoffed. "Signed by Judge Kinley? That old drunk will put his name on a napkin if Buck buys a mistake." Cody swallowed hard, his hand on Diablo's neck. "He doesn't belong to Buck, not anymore." Sawyer looked at the stallion. "You really think he's going to protect you if this goes bad?" Cody didn't blink. "I know he will." Then, from behind the barn, a shout, "Go, Cody, now!" Zeke Hollis appeared like a ghost, hat tilted back, face flushed from the sprint. "Trail's clear." Cassidy turned, eyes flashing. "Run!" Cody grabbed the lead rope. "Let's go, boy." Diablo hesitated only a second, then bolted behind him, hooves hammering the dirt. Wilder moved to follow, but Rhett grabbed his arm. "Let him go," he said, his voice cracking. "We ain't bounty hunters." Sawyer cursed under his breath and threw his hat. Buck's gonna lose his mind. They didn't stop running for miles. Ryan met them just past the old fence line, rifle slung over her shoulder and a canteen in hand. "Up the ridge," she ordered. "There's a dry riverbed past the pine break. Follow it west. It'll throw off their tracks." They pushed through thorn brush, under low-hanging limbs, until the trees swallowed the noise behind them. By the time they reached the dry riverbed, the sun was high and their breath was ragged. Cody dropped to his knees, gasping. Diablo stood over him like a sentinel. "I'm sorry," Cody whispered, pressing his forehead to the horse's side. "This ain't what I wanted." Diablo flicked his tail once, then nudged Cody's shoulder, like an answer without words. Back in Dry Creek, Cheyenne Hart's newest piece hit the airwaves. Court, order, or cover-up. How a $1 million horse became a small-town war. It included interviews with old ranchers, diner workers, even two of Buck's former hands who left after seeing how Diablo was treated. Her phone buzzed with requests from national networks, but she ignored them. She didn't want headlines. She wanted the truth to stick. Buck Peterson, meanwhile, paced in his office like a caged bull. The media storm was making him look like a tyrant. The bet had been a stunt. He never thought anyone would take it. Now it was a noose tightening around his neck. "Creed says we got 2 days," Sawyer told him, "before the papers expire." "Then find them," Buck growled, "and take that horse back." That night, in a narrow hollow lined with cottonwoods, Cody built a fire from damp branches and let the smoke curl into the sky. Maisie had packed jerky and hard biscuits. Ryan shared a wool blanket she kept rolled tight behind her saddle. Cassidy leaned against a tree, her voice low. "You ever think about giving him up?" Cody didn't answer right away. He stared at Diablo, standing calm beneath the stars, head bowed like he understood every word. "My dad used to say the world chews up dreamers," Cody said finally. "I think maybe he was right, but I also think maybe the ones who hang on long enough, they're the ones who change things." Silence settled over the group. Then Ryan broke it. "Buck won't stop, and Creed's got friends in places that don't care about what's right." "Then we stay ahead," Cassidy said. "We find a lawyer. Get Cheyenne to keep printing." Cody looked down at the bracelet of braided horsehair on his wrist. "We don't need to win," he whispered. "We just need to last long enough for people to see who Diablo really is." At that same hour, Buck met with Dallas Creed in the back room of a bar outside county lines. The papers were spread across the table. Ownership claims, vet records, the grainy court order. "If we don't act," Creed said, "you'll lose the horse. The boy's turning into some kind of folk hero." Buck poured another glass of rye. "Then we hit hard, end it fast." Creed nodded once. "Tomorrow." At dawn. As the fire burned low in the hollow, Cody read an old note tucked into his mama's Bible. It was faded, barely legible, written in her careful cursive, "Don't tame what's wild. Understand it. Walk beside it, not in front." He looked at Diablo again, not a prize, not a weapon, a partner. The night felt heavier than before. But the bond between them? It was stronger than fear, and Cody knew, whatever came at dawn, they'd face it together. The hills were still in that pale hour before the sun crested the ridge, when even the birds held their breath. Cody stood in the doorway of the cabin, boots planted, eyes fixed on the tree line. Behind him, Diablo shifted his weight, muscles coiled like he could feel the tension coming on the wind. Cassidy joined him, mug of bitter coffee steaming in her hands. "They're coming," she said, voice low. "Creed's truck was spotted last night headed this way. Buck won't stay home if there's a show to steal." Cody didn't look at her. He didn't have to. "We don't run this time." Inside the cabin, Maisie packed up what little they had, blankets, feed bags, maps. Ryan Lee loaded shells into an old pump action and set it beside the door. No one spoke of the law. Not because they didn't believe in it, but because they knew men like Buck Peterson didn't wait on courtrooms when pride was bruised. Out in the pasture, Diablo pawed the ground, eyes trained on the horizon. He wasn't just waiting, he was watching, sensing, bracing. By the time the trucks crested the ridge, the sun had begun to spill gold through the trees. 3 of them, Buck's black Silverado at the front, flanked by 2 dust-caked ranch pickups. Doors slammed, boots hit the dirt. Sawyer Kane stepped out first, his hat low and shoulders square. Rhett Maddox followed with a hand resting on his belt, but no gun drawn. Behind them, Dallas Creed leaned against the fender of his truck, polished boots dusted from the ride. Then Buck emerged, slow and deliberate, like a storm building on the plains. His eyes scanned the cabin, the pasture, and finally settled on the boy standing beside the horse that had cost him everything. Cassidy stepped off the porch before Cody could. "That's far enough," she said, blocking the path. Buck spread his arms, mockingly casual. "No need for drama. I'm just here to collect what's mine." Maisie appeared beside Cassidy, face pale, but jaw locked. "You lost your bet. Whole county saw it. Diablo made his choice." Ryan flanked them, rifle slung across her shoulder like a warning. "He's not property, not anymore." Buck's smirk cracked. "You think a few soft-hearted women and a runaway boy can stop me? I built this county. Every fence, every deal, every damn rodeo. That horse is mine. That bet was a show. Doesn't change the brand burned on his flank." Cody stepped forward, past them all. The morning light hit his face, and he looked every bit the part he never asked for but now carried like a banner. "You made that bet in front of everyone," he said, voice calm but firm. "You said Diablo was yours, until someone could ride him. I did. You lost." Buck laughed bitterly. "You don't understand how this works." "I do," Cody said, louder now. "Better than you ever will." And then, from behind the pasture, engines roared again. This time not with threats, but with hope. Dozens of trucks and cars rolled in, beat-up pickups, work vans, Old Chevys and Fords rattling down the dirt road like an old-time procession. Out climbed ranchers, mechanics, waitresses, high schoolers in football jackets, retirees in denim overalls. Every soul who had read Cheyenne Hart's articles. Every person tired of seeing people like Buck decide who mattered and who didn't. Cheyenne herself stepped onto the scene, camera slung over her neck. "The world's watching, Buck," she said, eyes fierce behind her glasses. "Try anything and it's going live." Sawyer shifted uncomfortably. Rhett's hand slipped from his belt. Even Wilder Boone, standing near the back, crossed his arms and looked away. Dallas muttered, "This is getting out of hand." Buck's voice dropped, low and dangerous. "You think this ends with a crowd, Cody? You think these folks will remember your name when winter comes and you're broke and cold?" Cody didn't move. He placed a hand on Diablo's neck. "They don't need to remember me. Just this." He turned to face the crowd and lifted his voice. "This horse isn't a show. He isn't a prize. He's a living thing who chose to trust when he had every reason not to. If you want to take him, if you want to take me, you'll have to go through all of them." Diablo lifted his head, let out a deep snort that rolled through the clearing like thunder. The people stepped closer, shoulder to shoulder, silent but unyielding. The town had made its choice. For the first time in a long, long while, Buck Peterson had no ground to stand on. He looked at Sawyer. "Let's go," he snapped. Sawyer didn't move. Buck's eyes flared. "I said, let's go." But Rhett was already walking away. Dallas cursed under his breath and slammed his truck door. Buck looked at Cody one last time, hate boiling behind his eyes, and spit into the dirt. "This ain't over." "Yeah," Cody said, steady. "It is." As the trucks rolled away, the crowd erupted, clapping, cheering, hugging strangers. Diablo stood still in the middle of it all, unmoved by the noise but calm in the way only the truly free can be. Cassidy hugged Cody tight. "You did it." Cody looked at Diablo, hand resting on his withers. "We did it." Somewhere in the distance, the wind shifted, the weight lifted, and for the first time in his life, Cody Barnes felt like he truly belonged. Spring settled slow over Dry Creek, like the land itself had exhaled after a long winter. The fields near Crossbone Ridge turned green again. Wildflowers spilling through fence posts that hadn't seen care in years. It was quiet country, the kind where the wind did most of the talking, rustling through cottonwoods, brushing across the tall grass like it was soothing the land back to peace. At the edge of one such field stood a low-built barn, freshly painted in white and dusty red. Beside it, a hand-carved sign swayed gently from twin posts sunk deep into the earth. The Wild Heart Sanctuary, founded by Cody Barnes and friends. The boy who once rode a devil in front of a crowd now rode bareback in the early morning, leading a pair of rescued colts through the pasture with nothing but soft whistles and steady hands. His clothes still didn't fit right, boots scuffed from use, but there was something different about him now. He stood straighter, like he no longer flinched when people looked too long. Diablo trotted beside him, older but still powerful, his coat now gleaming with health instead of dust and scars. He didn't wear a saddle or bridle. He didn't need one. The sanctuary had grown faster than anyone expected. It started with Cassidy June donating her veterinary hours. Then Ryan Lee offered up the old hunting cabin as a home base. Maisie Bell worked the books and the kitchen. She made the best chili this side of the Brazos, and even visiting reporters came back for seconds. And Cheyenne Hart? She did what she always did, told the truth. Her feature series, Mustang Kid, had gone national. Donations poured in from every corner of the country. Kids wrote letters. Veterans sent photos of their rescue horses. Even teachers used Cody's story in class projects. But none of that changed the way Cody worked. He still mucked stalls before breakfast, still slept in the hayloft when the nights ran too long, still sat beside Diablo in the quiet hours and listened like the world only made sense when the noise stopped. Buck Peterson faded into the background like a bad story no one wanted to retell. After the failed standoff, his influence crumbled. Dallas Creed was under investigation for fraud and illegal possession of livestock. Rumor had it he'd skipped the county line before anyone could serve him papers. No one chased him. They had better things to do. By midsummer, the sanctuary held 6 horses and 3 dogs, each with stories of being broken, mistreated, or discarded. Some still flinched at loud voices. Some kicked at shadows. But with time, they began to change. Because no one at Wildheart forced them to be anything other than what they were. That was the rule Cody held to. He didn't ride to prove a point. He rode to earn trust. Every step forward was permission, not control. Every touch, an invitation. One hot afternoon, Cheyenne returned with a new camera and a film crew. She asked to shoot footage for a documentary. Cody agreed, but only if it showed the quiet parts too. The waiting, the silence, the long hours of nothing happening while everything important was healing. That evening, as golden light pooled over the grass, Cody sat with a group of visiting kids near the fence. Some were foster children. One used a cane. Another had lost her hearing and read his lips as he spoke. "This place ain't about fixing," Cody told them. "It's about letting things be wild again, even people, especially people." The girl with the cane asked, "Does it ever get easy?" Cody smiled, brushing dust off his knees. "Not really, but it gets worth it." That night, Maisie joined him on the porch. She leaned against his shoulder, her hair still smelling faintly of lemon pie and coffee grounds. "You ever think about leaving?" she asked. He shook his head slowly. "Used to, not anymore." From the pasture, Diablo lifted his head. He still didn't sleep deep, not with coyotes in the distance and old wounds buried under muscle and memory. But when he saw Cody, he settled again. The stars came out in clusters like promises scattered across a velvet sky. Inside the cabin, Cassidy tucked a stack of new adoption papers into a drawer. Rian loaded feed into the back of her truck. Somewhere behind the barn, Zeke Hollis was teaching a pair of volunteers how to tack without scaring a half-blind gelding named Rust. It was all still held together by thread, but it held. The next morning, Cody rose before the sun. He didn't wake anyone, he just stepped outside, barefoot and silent, and whistled once. Diablo came from the far side of the pasture, slow and steady, ears flicked forward. Cody climbed up without a bridle, without reins, just balance and breath. They rode out through the lower gate, into the field beyond the sanctuary. The sky was waking with streaks of orange and pale blue. Dew clung to the grass like a blessing. They didn't go fast, just a quiet walk along the edge of the world. When they reached the top of the ridge, Cody stopped. Diablo snorted, tail flicking once. Cody leaned forward, his hand resting on the stallion's neck. "We made it, boy," he whispered, "and we didn't break to do it." Behind them, the sanctuary waited. Ahead of them, the open world. And between the two, a boy and a horse, wild at heart, free by choice, and stronger than any fence that had ever tried to hold them.